You're not less of a parent by choosing not to put your kids in things that your peers or other families or neighbors are putting their kids into. I remember us trying to figure out what sort of resonated with your personality. Obviously, music for you was like a natural thing right from when you could talk. So that was like, okay, we need to channel, let's do piano, whereas somebody else, it was athletic ability. So you channel it that way. I mean, there is that thinking out there that says expose them to all of the things. Eventually you'll see which one they shine at. Yeah, I guess, but at what cost? You will be running constantly. And really, kids just want to be with you. I don't think there is enough of the sitting down and having a meal together.
Yeah.
That's where you hear the stories. Sometimes it takes a while. And 7:00 and you're still sitting there, but that's when the hard things came out. So slow down.
Hey, I'm Jodi.
And I'm Chris.
And we are Loving the Outcome. Welcome to our podcast.
We're a husband and wife who rock out together.
We're parents of Milo and Ziggy.
And we're following Jesus as best we can.
Our story began in Winnipeg, Manitoba, where we fell in love, got married, and decided to sell everything and travel in our Jetta, selling CDs out of the trunk of our car.
The road led us to Nashville, where we signed a record deal, started our family, and now the four of us travel together in our minibus, White Neptune.
I know, crazy, right? Our life is a road trip.
And we want to invite you into it.
So come along for the ride as we chat with some of our favorite people about family, spirituality, wellness,
and of course, music.
Come on, let's go. Thanks, babe. Hey, guys. Welcome to the Mother's Day special treat episode. It's me and my mom. We basically have tea parties all the time, and I thought, man, wouldn't it be a treat if we could just do a podcast tea party and let you guys into it? So my mom is amazing, and it's really cool being a grown-up now and having her be one of my best friends. And I just thought, man, I have so many things I'd love to ask her. And I asked a few of my friends to give me questions they had for my mom too, because a lot of my friends think my mom's the bomb. And so this is really that. It's a tea party Mother's Day episode, me and my mom, and you guys get to listen in on it. We talk about a lot of stuff, everything from who were you before you were a mom? Do you feel like you brought those parts of yourself along into motherhood? We talked about what was your favorite season of motherhood? Where did you really feel like you thrived? Were there ever moments where you felt like you were barely surviving, but we as kids thought you were killing the game, Because I just remember my mom being really present and being this really safe place for me. And I don't remember her ever seeming like she was a hot mess, but she reveals to me that there were, in fact, moments where she didn't feel like she was killing it. And that actually, that makes me feel better sometimes because she was so stellar, such a good mom. But sometimes I'm like, I'm failing. How did you do this with 3 kids? So I'm really excited for you guys to get to listen in on this. And I think one of my favorite parts of the conversation is I asked her what her guiding values were between her and my dad for our family. What were the 3 words that you would say, these were our values, these were our priorities, and these guided every decision we made as a family? I thought that was such an enlightening conversation. So I'm excited for you guys to get to know my mom a little bit more and get to know me as a mom. I don't always focus on that aspect of myself on the podcast with Chris, but it's such a big part of me and the season I'm in. So I found it so life-giving, and I hope you find this episode very life-giving to just know that this is a big hug. This is a high five. This is you're doing awesome. And I hope you feel really encouraged. So before we dive into the episode, there are, oh man, when this airs, I think there'll be 1 or 2 days left on my Kickstarter. So if you guys don't have my devotional book, it's called You Got This, A Guide to Ditching Perfect and Showing Up for Your Real Life. I really want you guys to grab it. Go pre-order the book. There is a link to our Kickstarter at the top of our Instagram page. and our Facebook page and on our YouTube channel. And I'll also put a link in the show notes. So go grab one of those, and there's still a spot to get your name in the thank yous if you haven't done that already too. Thank you guys so much for bringing my book to life. I could not have done this without you. It's been such a thrilling and nerve-wracking adventure, but guts and faith. That's how I want to live. So thanks for helping me do that and bring this dream to life. And like always, we're not on the road. We are home as a family, but we're really leaning into Worship Wednesdays in this season and just getting to worship with you guys from the comfort of our home and you in yours. That's every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central. And I've been doing devotions, and I'm going to continue doing them. And we're going to move to Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9 a.m. Central, I'm going to be doing a short devotional. And I'm really enjoying that time with you guys. So I think that's kind of all the news to talk about. And we love you, and we think you're awesome. And we really hope that this podcast encourages you and brings you to life. If you know another mama that needs to hear this, then click subscribe, rate and review, leave us a little note, leave us your takeaways, and share it with another friend that needs it. Okay, here's me and my mom having tea. Happy Mother's Day.
I'm moving on. Guilt has had its grip on me for way too long. This will be my freedom song. Hallelujah, because of you, I'm moving on. I'm moving on.
Hi, Mama.
Hi, sweetie.
I'm so glad you agreed to do this with me. Did I force you into it?
Not really my deal, if I'm honest, but for you, yeah, I'll do it. But that's okay.
I know. I said to Chris right before we started, I'm like, nothing like putting your mom on the spot and saying, hey, can you tell me and all my friends and all of our listeners all the ways you failed as a mom and that you did awesome as a mom and all the things you'd go back and redo? Just tell us everything. You're a true.
All good.
Thank
All
you.
good. No, I'm happy to. Probably nothing earth-shattering, nothing like, oh, but hey, if something I say resonates with one person, that's my prayer.
It
So.
absolutely will resonate, because there's no way for it not to. Like, I just thought with all of my friends that have come over for tea and had my scones, which are your scones, which are your mom's scones,
Yes.
and have like had China cup tea parties, right?
Mhm.
And like just every part of the way I do things is a part of how you have always done things. Now I do things that way. And it's crazy living like far away from you. And I really, it's much more important to me, like those things that were maybe just things before, like my china from your mom, and the way that I do what I do is just so important to me now, because it's like I bring you to all my tea parties, even though you're so far away. And I just feel like all of my friends over the years are like, how did you learn how to make scones? How did you learn how to do this and that? Why does your house feel so homey? And it's like, I better have a tea party chat with my mom, because it all starts with my mom and my dad. But in terms of being a mom, that all starts with my mom. And I've never really had the chance to ask you. I have so many questions. I mean, I ask you stuff all the time, like every single day. But when it really got to the heart of like Mother's Day and really reflecting on what makes me a mom and what would be really freeing for moms out there that are in like the thick of the season I'm in, and maybe even a crazier season than I'm in, what would be freeing for them to hear? And it'd probably be really freeing to hear you vulnerably share, courageously share, just some of what you feel went really well, how you felt like really in your element at times, when you felt like you were way out of your element, but you just had to keep showing up, and just all that stuff. I just thought, I want to hear that. So surely somebody else would be really encouraged to hear that. So thanks for being so game.
Yeah. So,
Deep breath.
deep breath.
Well, okay, Yeah, maybe let's just start at the beginning because, okay, by the way, P.S., if you guys are watching this video and not just listening, you will see my mom's wall of photos. What do you call that wall again?
Well, it's our gallery wall, but because we have been chipping away at it for what seems like years,
Yeah.
now we obviously have time, right? So we're calling it our COVID wall. But yeah, we just are hoping to do this entire wall in family photos, just over the years, the highlights, just some of the memorable trips and times. And now
Wow.
with grandkids in there, it's just we sit here for supper, and so we just gaze and we
Wow.
remember, yeah, it's wonderful.
That's
Mhm.
amazing. That looks so good, Mom.
Coming.
I can see 1,000,001 memories on that wall. I see. Oh my goodness, we won't go into detail on all that I see there. But so when you look back at that, and just when you think back in general, I feel like my memory of you as a mom was always having it together. And I know you're gonna laugh and be like, but I'm
That's fine.
telling you, like my memory of you
Aw.
is really like patient and really present. And I just felt like as a kid, my mom's got it together. Like I felt, what's a better way to say that? I felt really safe because I felt like you had it. I felt like I was on solid ground. Didn't feel like I was on shaky ground. But were there ever times that we probably couldn't see or maybe couldn't tell where you felt like you were barely making it or maybe even faking it to make it?
Oh, for sure. But the fact that you think that way, or that's your memory, is encouraging. It should be encouraging, right? To you, to other
Yeah.
young moms. Because no, I mean, I didn't have it together, and there were many times that I was just like, oh my word. But isn't it cool that you remember the good things? And I don't think I was that good at faking it, but I'm glad that's what you remember. Probably when I think back to parenting over the years, probably the most stressful time for me was the year your brother was born, because you were 4, you weren't 5 yet, you were close to 5, and we had 3 of you under 4.5. So, and Dad traveled so much. So
Mm.
I think Graham was like 13 days old when he had to go overseas for 2 weeks. And I mean, thankfully I had parents close by and in-laws close by to help, but still, they're not around in those nights when you're up 3 and 4 times, and
Yeah.
ear infections just always happened when Dad wasn't home. It just, honestly, it was like, really, again? But those were the stressful times, and I need my sleep, and yeah, so it's wonderful to think that you remember that I had it together, because no, not all the time.
What would you do on those mornings when you woke up and Dad's gone and Graham has an ear infection and Brittany's 2.5 and I'm 4.5? How did you show up on those days? Like, do you remember getting out of bed? What did you do to really show up on those really hard days?
Thankfully, I'm an early riser, so in spite of it all, I tried to get up before anyone else. That seemed to be
Wow.
key to me. If I could get up and have that pot of tea going, because I wasn't into coffee back in those days, oh, that would have helped. But I would get that pot of tea going, and I would get myself ready so that when you 3 got up, at least I was somewhat ready to go for the day. So that for me was key. For whatever reason, I just remember someone giving me that advice way back, and it really worked. I mean, even years later, when you and I would get up and go swimming at 10 to 6 in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Before the day started, it just seemed like you had a jump on the day, like you could,
Mm.
yeah.
I feel like that actually explains a lot to me because I didn't know you were doing that. I never knew you got up until this moment. That makes total sense though, because I feel like you really thrived on setting an atmosphere and a tone
Mm,
in the house. And I
mm,
feel like every mom is a working mom, whether you're in the house full time or whether you're doing both or whether you're just out of the house. But I feel like for you, the way you really channeled that was you know what? I set the tone. I
Mhm.
kind of set the tone. I create the atmosphere that my family wakes up to. And being
Yeah,
maybe 5 minutes ahead, maybe let you do that.
I guess, it's, yeah, I mean, I was so young when I think about how young I was
Oh my
and
God.
naive and
How
all
old
of
would
that.
you have been? You had 3 kids under 5 and you were 25?
Graham was born a couple weeks before I turned 27. Yeah.
It's crazy. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I wasn't a mom yet at that point.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I'm just one of those. I mean, I'm sure there's many out there, but that's what I felt like I longed for right from as far back as I can remember. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a mom, and I wanted to create a home that was a desirable place. And that's just how it was put together, I guess. And so, yeah, it came out of a passion for doing it because I just loved it. And
Wow.
it's like that with anything, right? You say your most passionate thing is, one of the most passionate things for you is being on stage. And I mean, that's evident. You love it. And what looks like work to so many for you just comes effortlessly, you
Wow.
know?
That's a really good way
So,
to put it.
mhm.
That's beautiful because I think that's probably you just answered the question why to us as kids we felt like you had it all together because you were passionate about it. So even on your hardest day,
Maybe,
you still had a smile on
maybe.
your face. And I heard a podcast once, and an older lady, like in her 70s, said, "I always tell my kids, you can't have a happy place without a happy face." I'm like, "Yeah,
Aw.
that's true," and that kind of stuck with me. And you know, I think you did that really well. And
Mhm.
I mean, I feel like when we're little kids, there's only so much you expose of your emotions and your true self to your kids. But I've appreciated your vulnerability as we've gotten older, like you sharing a little bit more openly, which maybe is sometimes hard to do. But as we've moved into friendship as adults, I have enjoyed these sorts of conversations because you do feel, to all those of you listening that felt like your mom had it all together, on days you don't have it all together, it's actually so helpful to have your mom tell you, I didn't always
Mhm.
have it all together. You know,
Yeah, that makes sense.
how did you do it? I only have 2 kids, you had 3, and da 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 da. And I feel like I'm failing. And how did so yeah, this is super helpful to me and just freeing to go, oh, you had those days too.
I mean, Dad's not as much of like he wears his emotion on his sleeve probably more than I do. And
Yeah.
so that was a challenge because I felt like I wanted to protect you guys from the hard times or when we were having a difficult, episode or situation. And so I remember thinking really consciously, like, shh, quiet, we don't want the kids.
Uh,
So looking back, I don't know that that was always great, but I remember Dad saying to me, it's okay for them to see that there are struggles. That's life. And so I think moving into you becoming adults, teens and adults,
yeah.
that was a challenge for me to let down that guard and be like,
Mm.
oh, guys, this is actually, so it's been a learning, and the vulnerability and honesty now that we get to enjoy, that's definitely been a learning for me. Because I felt like I wanted to protect you for whatever reason from,
Yeah.
you asked me earlier about, or when one of the questions, when you were texting me, you said things to do differently. And I think that sort of plays into it. I felt like I always wanted to keep you safe from that scary world. And looking back, I'm not sure that was always wise. I mean, obviously you're not going to expose your kids to everything, but I think I would have chilled out a lot more. If I could have a do-over, I think probably should have chilled about a lot of those things,
Do you
wasn't
think
really.
that's just because your parents parented you that way?
I mean, you definitely seem to instinctually do what you were modeled, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that has a huge part in it. Yeah, and just my personality probably too,
So natural,
yeah.
like you want to see your kids. I mean, Milo's only 4, and already I remember the first time when he was born, or like walking and waving, started waving at everyone, that phase where all of a sudden they're waving and saying hi to everyone. I mean, if someone didn't say hi to him, it was like, what's that person's problem? What's their like, even from right early on, it's just your mother gut instinct.
Oh, I always called it my mother bear showed up. It was like, whoa, don't mess with me.
Ah, I think too, like, I don't know, maybe you can, I feel like in our age and our era of motherhood, there's such a focus on like health and our own mental health and our own self-care. That's a better way to say it. That's not, mental health isn't really where I was going, but yeah, self-care, and about taking time away for ourselves, and just next vacation, and when's my next spa date, and when's my next manicure, and do I get a time to myself, and just a big focus on that. And just in general, I think a focus on knowing ourselves and becoming the best version of ourselves. And I think that's great. There's so many pros to that, but I'd love to hear it from your perspective, if that was a thing, and if you think we focus on it too much, too little. Just what's your take on that?
I'm giggling because I had coffee with a couple of friends a few months ago, and the term came up, self-care, and one of the girls was like, self-care, what does that even mean? And so me and my girlfriend were trying to explain, well, that's when you have a day for yourself, or when you go to the spa for the day, or when you just have a completely pamper day. She's like, oh wow, never heard of that term. But it's funny because that wasn't a part of my life. It really wasn't.
Yeah.
And I have mixed feelings on that. Sometimes I think that you guys are so wise in taking that into account and realizing when you've hit a wall, or when it's been however many days that you haven't been away from your kids or apart. But honestly, that was not in my routine at all. I mean, probably the closest I came to that would be a girlfriend and her kids coming over for the day, and we'd all put down all the kids for a nap in the afternoon, make a big pot of tea, and sit and visit for that hour and a half, 2 hours, however long they'd be napping. But I don't know. I think, we're all so different. So what we need is different. Maybe I just didn't really need it as much. Probably would have made me a better mom if I'd have stepped away now and again and taken time for my own self-care. I don't know. But it does make me chuckle, because that's like, come on, that's a necessary thing these days. You got to factor that in. Like,
yeah.
so
I wonder if part of it is how many moms work outside the home.
totally.
You think that's a part of it?
Well, not even, yeah, I think that is, but I think just the pace of life itself.
Just the pace of life. That's a better way
Yeah.
to say it. Yeah.
Because it's interesting, when I can, like you asked me too, how does mothering then compare to how I see you guys mothering now? And it's funny that we're having this conversation in the middle of this pandemic, right? Because this is the most I've felt like my 35 years ago self. Like let's say when you were 10, 8, and 6. This brings me back to that more than any other time lately, just because life is slow, and I'm baking more, and I'm making bread more, and I'm just home. And it just, I don't think a day goes by that I don't think of those days when I was home with you three. And that's just what we did. We had a slow life compared to today, where it's go, go, go. And you have your kids in 4 or 5 different things. And like, it was different. It was a slower life. And I don't know, I mean, technology plays a huge part. I get that. Like,
Yeah.
even the phone, the distraction of the phone, right?
Yeah.
Something as simple as that. If you take that out of the equation, imagine, hey, how much
How much
more
extra time you have.
Yeah. So it's
So
just a
like,
different
what are
world.
we putting our energy, what's getting our time? Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah, it is just a different world. It's not like you can, but this is cool because you get a taste of it, right? And so hopefully the takeaways will be, I do need to change that, or,
Yeah.
sorry, you can edit that part out. Yeah, so it is hard to compare, but this time in our world does take me back there a little bit.
Well, I agree. It feels like we've had to let go of a lot of things. And I think that's, yeah, you realize what you actually need and what you actually don't need. Like even the fact that you and me and Britt have been baking weekly yeast recipes that take like almost a whole day from start to
Right?
finish, right? We could have been doing that all along,
Thought that. It's true.
but we it took till now to set that hour aside and make it as much of a priority as anything else.
So true. Yeah,
But
exactly.
I'm glad we're doing it. And all of our
Excellent.
hair being out of control is just all those things, like, and it makes me think back to that self-care thing, right? Like, I think there is a really good trend towards peeling back the layers of who we are and getting to the root causes of our reactions. And I'm like a big fan of some of that. And I do feel like in this season of motherhood where it's busy and needy, that it is really nice, even just a walk, to just like get in touch with who you are. Did you feel like, because that was less of a focus, absolutely was less of a priority, I think, in your generation, and probably even more so to your mom, do you feel now with your friends like there's been a bit of a delay in getting to those deeper layers of who you are? Was it just kind of like show up, be a mom, do your thing, or do you felt like you were really in tune with yourself in those days as a mom? Is that a weird question?
No, I mean, once I'll use the Enneagram as an example. I just love that stuff, right? I could just go crazy analyzing. And I wish I would have I think one of the benefits of having a self-care, or maybe peeling back some of my layers back then, would have been knowing who each of you were and what made you tick. And because that was really important to me
Yeah.
to know, you know, the differences between you and why you did what you did and each of the kids did what they did. But even for me as a mom and dad as a dad, like now I look back because I'm just figuring out who he is and who I am. And it's like, oh, it just makes so much sense, right? Why you react the way you do, or why you chose to, like we had this thing at supper time. You'll remember back when you guys were young, when you'd come home from school, that each of you would have to share something about your day. And we weren't allowed to leave the table, or you weren't allowed to leave the table until you had shared. Well, that was no problem for you. You could hardly wait. In fact,
I bet.
you had a lot to say, whereas when it got down to Graham, he's like, nothing, and it was like, come on, there's something in there. You can find something. So it's just, yeah, it is helpful. I guess all that to say, I do wish maybe I would have paid a little more attention to that.
Mm.
And what was the last part of that question? Helpful now in relationships? Yeah, I think it is. But it's not like we have a problem like with my girlfriends going to those places. Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah.
Interesting. It really does sound like we're just too busy. Like self-care, needing so much self-care is a product of being so busy and being everywhere. It's like, if we weren't as busy, would we need as much? I'm peacing out, gotta have some time for myself. Like, would we need that as much if we were
Yeah.
not biting off more than we could chew? I don't know.
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? But you know what? It's like being a full-time at-home mom was way more common than it is now. And I mean, looking back, I said to Dad this morning, oh, was that a privilege? And he's like, it was a choice. And I'm like, yeah, it was a choice. It was a sacrifice. But it was a privilege, because if I wouldn't have been able to, I mean, that would have changed a lot, right? So, and everyone's not wired to be home with their kids 24/7, like,
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like that either, because I was wired that way,
Yeah.
that's not everybody's deal, right?
Yeah.
And so many people are better at working outside of the home, and then when they come home, they're just all there, right?
Mm.
But that was just not who I was. So I'm thankful for that, that I got to do what I love to do, and that Dad was able to work and allow me to be home full time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Do
But
you-
yeah, maybe more so, maybe busier does mean more self-care. I've never thought of it like that.
I haven't either, but just
Could
hearing
be.
you unpack it and like thinking about it, just the times I've felt like I need it the most is almost always a reflection on when I've been doing too many things.
It's good.
It's like, well, what if I I just maybe said yes to a few too many things, and I couldn't say yes to being present to myself and my kids. Because when you're present, you're not very stressed, right? Like when you're really present to what you said yes to and you're really giving yourself to that, it's not really stressful. There's hard moments, but like you're saying, it's not like every day was a piece of cake parenting 3 kids, but when you woke up 5 minutes early and you were present and you did the best that you could, and you weren't also trying to do 10 million other things on the calendar,
Right.
maybe you don't need to piece out quite as badly. It just sounds like we cause a bit of our own overwhelm, sometimes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also think it depends on the season that you thrive in the most as a mom. I feel like
True.
you are so good with newborns. Like I just, when my kids were newborn, you were just like, get me on that plane. Like I want to hold
Oh,
that,
man. Oh,
right?
babies.
Yeah.
No, I just loved having a baby in the house. It's
Yeah.
just the best feeling, I don't know.
Probably to the point that if you didn't get so sick during pregnancy, you would have had more.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, 4 was the hope, but hey, when you're throwing up for 9 months, it's not really a good idea to keep this going.
I remember it clearly.
Yeah.
Like even though I was only 4.5, I remember how sick you were. But yeah, that's so interesting to me too. So I bet you we need more. And I'm not trying to make too much of it. I think there's a real difference between tag, you're it, babe, I need 5 minutes. That's life, right? But
Absolutely.
so I'm definitely not trying to minimize the importance of being aware and all that kind of thing. I just think it's such a focus that I was just really wanted your take, because I feel like when you signed up to be a mom, it was supposed to be all consuming. Like that was the deal, right? It was like, I want to be a mom. I want to have a family. This is going to be my priority. And it was just a little bit different than now. But also everybody's different. Like I fully wanted to give my yes to being a mom. And I also fully wanted to still be an artist. And I didn't necessarily plan that it would go like this at the same time. My plan was very different. That I think I thought I'd be a young mom like you were, because you were. That was my example. And to somewhat same with Chris's mom. So I think we just thought that's probably the way we'd go. And then I just realized for me, like, I can't have my cake and eat it too right now. I think I can have my cake and eat it too if I do it in stages. I can have all the things I want, but I don't know that I can do them. So when we moved to Nashville and signed the record deal, that was when we were going to start trying to have a family. We're like, let's just try, sign the record deal. And really clearly both of us just felt we got to give this a minute, because I'm never going to be able to fully show up for this dream that Chris and I had both worked so long for. So that was almost like, oh, it sounds weird, but I remember talking to the Lord about it, because I was stressed, because I was already signed my record deal in my 30s, right? So it's like, am I saying no to being a mom forever? It felt like I was being, oh man, not a good female, not doing what females are supposed to do by putting family first, by putting career first in that moment. But I really felt clarity from Holy Spirit, like, just take it step by step. Like, just trust me in this. You've worked really hard for this. And, so we did. We signed the record deal and we gave it a couple of years to let that grow first, and then had our kids, and then everything took off at the same time. So I guess it really just depends on, what motherhood looks for each person, on how much peace out and self-care they need, and what you thrive in as a mom. I think we shape our lives accordingly.
Oh, absolutely. And look how it worked out. I mean, it's amazing. And you were always good at following that prompting and those nudges at, not the time, wait. And I mean, look, it just all came together as it was supposed to. But you're right. There's so many factors. There's no recipe for, or, like, it's just personality comes into play. Finances come into play. Season of life comes into play.
Yeah.
There's so much career,
Yeah.
So there is no pat answer. What works for you doesn't work for the next person, and vice versa.
Yeah. But I think you're right. I think showing up and giving your best and being aware of what makes you, what's right for you, and just channeling that, right, is like So big. And I feel like you're right. There's so many changing circumstances, but maybe what we can all hold on to and all prioritize, no matter if we're mothering inside and working outside or whatever season looks like. I had a friend ask me what three, I guess, sort of words would be to describe the priorities of our family,
Ooh,
which I thought was so good because, thanks, Stephanie. I just thought that was so good because no matter what you're doing, whether you're home full time, whether you're on the road with your kids like I am, whether you're working full time as a nurse like Britt and also a mom of two, it can look, I mean, it looks so different, right? Even within our family. Sasha, teacher, it looks so different for all of us, but yet we can all still channel and focus on those priority points.
that's
And
cool. Hey?
I think that's so freeing.
Oh, awesome.
So freeing.
Yeah.
And I was curious what you would say, you and Dad, even if you didn't have this exact conversation, maybe you did, but what would you say you and Dad focused on? What were your like main, let's try and let these guiding principles be what affect how we spend our money, how we spend our vacations, how we spend our home time, how we make decisions, just how we do life. What do you think you'd say was your priority with Dad?
I would say that, I mean, family was number one. So when it was something that involved us as a unit or you kids, we somehow managed to scrounge up what it took to make that happen.
Mm.
Other things maybe fell by the wayside or were sacrificed, let's say. But I don't know, it was our drive. It was our driving force, like really. And I remember us both feeling really strongly about you guys having your friends come to us, come to the house rather than you guys going
at our house.
Yeah, like, you know, even the conversation about the hot tub, I was like, yeah, that would bring their friends here, you know?
Right.
And so it was whatever we could do to bring you around. We wanted you guys around, you and all your friends. We just loved that. So that was a huge one. I mean, communicating. It was, you know, like I said about the mealtime, sitting around the table and hearing about your day. And for me, I had this sort of, I was reflecting on this yesterday because I looked at the clock and it was 4:00 and I was like, how is it 4:00? And it took me back to when you guys were all in school, how that was sort of my 4:00 was the time that whatever I was doing stopped because you'd be walking in the door. And so for me personally, as a mom, that was really important that once you walked in the door, my day of whatever that looked like stopped and it became about you guys. And, you know, whether it was taking muffins out of the oven or having, you know, the table set for tea, whatever, it was sitting down and hearing about your day. And so I guess that does fall into communication. Hey, just really being in tune with you on like, yeah.
I love
keeping
that.
short accounts, like knowing day to day what was going on inside of you and where you were at. And yeah, so that was definitely our family nights. We'd have every Friday night was family night. And we tried to keep that going. I mean, even when you guys all got married, Sunday nights were family nights. So we took turns picking a movie. We had pizza every single Sunday night when you guys all lived in the city. That was just, prioritizing family. I mean, it sounds so cheesy, but we just loved being with you and we wanted you to love being with us. And so we would take turns picking what we were going to do that night. And, you know, 5-6 pizzas some night I'd be making.
Yep.
And then we would just have a meal together and just hang out and spend the evening together. And yeah, it was tiring. Yeah, it was exhausting, but it wasn't even a sacrifice. It was something we wanted to pour our energy into, just to have you guys around.
Yeah.
And now I'm thankful for those when I look back. Oh, so glad.
Wouldn't change a thing.
Wouldn't change a thing. What I'd give for family nights now, right?
Yeah, now it's over Zoom with all of us in different countries and so spread out. I know. We all lived next to each other for so long, and then within a span of 2 years, it all changed, which is So much. I mean, and now more than ever, yeah, I don't want to skip ahead, but that resonates with me because I just feel like anytime any of us, whether it was Graham wanting a volleyball court in the backyard, whether it was a trampoline, whether it was the hot tub, whether it was the cabin, like just the beach house in general, just in times when I know financially it was a huge struggle to keep that up. If that fell into the category of memories as a family, it stayed. And somehow you guys found a way
Yeah,
to make it work. And I love that you said some other things fell by the wayside. I think that's huge. I think having these guiding principles and these guiding values is so key, because otherwise that could really cause rifts in you and dad's relationship.
Ooh,
But knowing you both had that focus of family time and togetherness, and I want the parties at our house, that becomes this thing you both align on, and probably helped a lot when it came to like, what do we spend money on and what do we
totally.
spend our family nights doing? Like, I could see that
Exactly.
being helpful.
And you can compare, we can all compare. And we didn't maybe go on those elaborate family holidays or ski trips or whatever, but you got to pick what lines up with you together, right? Husband and wife and parents. And for whatever reason, it was making our home a place of fun and celebration.
Yeah.
What we take, that we would pick any occasion to celebrate and make it special.
Oh,
It
it's
was
also the
like,
fact that Chris thinks I'm nuts when I'm like putting up the balloons and the streamers and baking 2 cakes the night before Milo's birthday. It's like,
I know, sorry, Chris. I know. It was a big deal. It didn't matter. Family,
love it.
extended, come for dinner, come for a barbecue. We're celebrating this 3-year-old. Like, like you knew any difference. But I don't know. It was whatever the occasion, it was cause for celebration. That's just how we viewed it. Yeah.
I love that. I think that, like, to everybody listening who sort of feels like in the Instagram age where you can get so caught up in taking your cues from everyone else's life and not just listening to your gut and the Holy Spirit, who usually uses your gut to speak to you,
Yeah.
and aligning with your husband. It's like that really makes for a happy home. Like,
Oh,
when you really break it down,
true. Peel it back.
like, that's what I'm hearing you
Place.
say. That's what I'm hearing you say. It's like, if you really know as a husband and wife and you're aligned on the same page with what you want these very few precious years to be. I mean, I was talking to Chris about that the other day. Milo's 4, we have till he's probably 18 to have summers together. So we have 16 left. Like, when you really think about it, it's short. And so why not be aligned as you go on how, and let that be the guide, not Instagram, not, oh, wow, everyone else is doing it this way. Sure, being inspired. I love that part of Pinterest.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Of Instagram, like, inspiration's awesome, but when it turns into an expectation that I put on myself,
Yeah.
oh wow, like a happy life looks like that. I'm not doing that. It's like, well, does that even make you tick? Does that make you come alive? Is that one of your strengths? Is that like, no? So go to the Black Hills on family vacation and go camping.
Yeah.
About Disney World, like, do it your way, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And play Phase 10 in your camper every night till,
Right.
Yeah.
We sure loved it. We found nothing but joy and memories in that time, right? And it can just be so tempting to have something to post. Gotta have something to post. So gotta make, hey, and I gotta post, right? But I try so hard to fight against that and just try and just live my real life and pull from a real place, and hopefully just inspire, but not put anybody in a place where they're looking at our Instagram feed and going, oh, that's the recipe. You know what I mean? Because it's not the doing, it's the being. And I feel like you were really good at the being. Like you're saying, like, we walked in the door at 4. I remember that almost always. And not that like having fresh muffins on the counter, or usually 2 options, is the answer. But that brought you joy, and that helped you bring us joy, and that worked for you. That was literally the recipe, is turning everything up for being present to us, and the being informed the doing, not the other way around.
Yeah. And it's funny because as I was thinking about this, it's like, oh, but you're a foodie, so that was easy for you. It was, and it was something I loved doing, the whole food thing and having the fresh muffins or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think it was more than that. I mean, as we all know, when you do take something out of the oven, I think it just engages all your senses, right? I mean, the visual of having them there, the aroma that fills the house, the tasting together, like all of it. So I'm not saying you have to, make a batch of muffins from scratch. Go buy your muffin dough or whatever. But
Right, exactly.
anyone can pop that in the oven and pull it out. And I don't know any child whose eyes don't light up and get big when they walk in and smell. Like it can be as simple as that, right?
Yeah.
So for us, that's what I did. And your reactions and your excitement and your love of that, it was enough to keep me going. I tell you, I'm going to try and do that as often as I can, right? Because you just feel so happy to see your kids happy. So, yeah.
I love that.
Mm.
You became a mom, like we just mentioned, so young. Do you feel like who you were before you were a mom? I don't know how to even ask this. Was able to still be who you were as a mom? Do you feel like you lost a part of yourself? How did you hold on to those parts of yourself, but that were just Judi, not Judi the mom, just Judi?
And I mean, I think that's also part of being 22, is that it's not like I'd lived all this life before being a mom.
Yeah.
So I feel like I still was who I was prior.
That's actually probably a blessing in disguise.
No, I think that makes it easier to hang on to who you are. I think, having 15 more years onto that, the challenge is going to be greater. You've lived an independent life of whatever. And now because mothering is sacrifice. It's a selfless thing.
Yeah.
So I think the longer you're on your own or the longer you're on this earth, probably more challenging entering into that selfless role, right?
So,
whereas I was, you know what, this is what you do. And, not that I was like, but
yeah,
I think I was able to hang on to who I was and my passions and my friendships and stuff. I do. Yeah. And Dad and I also dated from so young. So he was already my best friend since like 7 years before we had you.
Yeah.
So that obviously continued, right? So, yeah.
What were those things that made you feel like I've got this? Like, this can be silly, but I just remember your nails were always done.
Really?
Your nails always looked so good.
Way back then? Ooh, I don't remember that.
Not
Okay.
5, but probably when I was 15, like for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, taking care of myself, right? I still did go to the gym. I still did, like, we went swimming in the mornings or, I guess
every morning with your girlfriends for as long as I can remember.
we rode bike. I remember when you were at home, my self-care was going to the Y because we had a family membership. And part of why we chose the Y was because we could put you in the babysitting section for like an hour. Well, I'd quickly go and run and do a workout. You guys had a ball. I felt like I got my fill of what I needed to get. And
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah. What was your, like, looking back, is there something that you felt like you gave too much attention? Like, how do I say this? Something that you really harped on and you really made a priority that maybe you could have been easier on? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if that question makes any sense.
Well, sure. Cause the obvious, you know what the obvious is, right?
I don't know. Should I know?
Yes. Cause it was you. And you're always hardest on the oldest, right? You're the guinea pig. We learn through our first. Yeah. You get easier. You slack a bit as each child comes along, for sure. But I'm thinking belly button ring, right?
Oh yeah. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Oh, I think of that often. It's like, really, Judi, why was that a big deal? Why? Like, why was that so earth-shattering that we put down the law when it came to that? Yeah, I would have relaxed a lot about, I don't know. I think if I'm perfectly honest, I think fear was a big part. I don't think I did a good job of making you guys realize that the world wasn't such a scary place.
Mm.
I feel like I had you more in a bubble and wanted to protect you from that big scary world, maybe more than I should have.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know how to say it. Yeah, you know what? Chill in general is what that would be my redo. Just chill in general.
Just chill.
Just chill. Like, don't go to the wall and things. Less battles. We didn't have a lot of battles, but the battles we had, I'm like, really? I don't know that was worth it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Probably just feel like that's something you're supposed to enforce. So maybe this is, because I sometimes find myself enforcing, putting up a wall, like this is the wall. We do not cross this. This is the boundary line. And then if I don't really maintain that, I often ask myself, do you really care about that? Or is that about others' perception of you and
Yeah.
your family?
Yeah.
Because if you really cared, you would keep that as a firm, we do not cross this line. This is our, we've said no, this is the line. But I catch, and Chris too, like the both of us will catch each other like, you said that, but you didn't. Oh, what did someone say to me the other day? You need to inspect what you expect.
Ooh.
And I thought that was so good.
That is good.
And I mean, my kids, they're still very little, but even in those little ways, it's so easy to go, did you brush your teeth? Yeah. And it's just human nature that without accountability, we kind of lie or we kind of don't follow through. And Chris has to like literally go and look and dig in Milo's mouth and inspect what he expected. And like it was on another Wild and Free, this great podcast, shout out to them. But this lady was saying her boys when they were teenagers shared a loft bedroom, and she would just say, did you clean your room this week? Yeah, mom, totally cleaned. And she just was like, great, thanks guys. And then at the end of the month, she'd go to like just collect extra socks or make sure everything's okay. And the smell was so bad, she couldn't even get in their room. And she's like, you know what? That's kind of on me. I didn't inspect what I expected. And I didn't have accountability there. And I just thought, wow, I'm going to grab hold of that one and keep that one. So
Wow, that's good.
I don't even know where that came. What were we even talking about? Why did I go on that tangent?
Well, just chilling about things and,
knowing your
not
real, like
so-
whatever you do say, whatever you do say,
yeah.
this is our rule. Make sure you inspect what you expect. Like really make them know your yes is your yes and your no is your no.
Yeah.
I guess.
True. Yeah. And my dad always had this saying, what'll it matter 20 years from now?
Huh.
And it's true. You start things that you like, the room, having the room clean and doing your jobs, doing your chores. It's like, okay, really? I don't know that some of that was worth having a battle over, right? The hope is that you're going to grow up to be responsible adults that take care of their things and all that, right? But
yeah,
you could have learned that along the way anyway. It doesn't mean you had to have a clean room all the time, right? So
right. But it's hard to let your kids fail in front of you.
And I think for me, it's part of that youngness. Like I was so young, knowing who you are, the longer you're around on this earth, the more you know yourself, right? So at 22, could be argued that, how well did I even know myself at that point? Never mind bringing 3 more humans into the world. So learn as you go, right?
Learn as you go.
Learn as you go, and don't be too hard on yourself.
I love that. Chill out and learn as you go. Learn as they grow.
There you go.
That's so good, Mom. I think that's so freeing because I think it's so easy right now with access to information, like you were saying, like the flip side of what you're saying. You were so young, but you went with your gut and faith and you just did life. We second guess everything now because we can check out everyone else's life, the way everyone else is doing it, the way they're spending money, the way they're getting ahead. Getting ahead, I think, has always been a thing, but I think it's taken different forms over time. This pressure to like not only you're prioritizing family, but now you're prioritizing investments and buying up all this stuff and all the money and all the retirement money and all the things. It's like, goodness sakes, like how many focuses can we really have? And so I love what you're saying. Just like learn as you go and give yourself that grace to learn as you go. And if something I'm starting to realize about myself, which I feel like you're sort of saying about chill out, feel like if something is causing me stress in the moment, it might not be mine to worry about in that moment. Like, that's not always true. Sometimes we've got to push ourselves to do things that aren't fun. But sometimes I've overwhelmed myself with too many things, and there's nothing wrong with giving myself grace, like you said, and learning as I go and going, not for right now. I'll put that on a list for maybe another day, maybe another season.
Yeah.
But not for right now. If this is causing me a little stress, even I'm not trying to make it some huge, massive thing. I just even mean moment to moment throughout the day where all of a sudden you're like, I'm overwhelmed. How did I get here? And having enough pause built into your life to stop and go, okay, what am I doing that's not mine to do?
Yeah.
Maybe you can let that go.
Overthinking it, right? Just overthinking it. I am the queen of that, even still. So, when you realize, I was like, whoa, I just went on this whole spiral just from one little thought, It's just like, no, I'm in my head right now. I'm overthinking this. This really isn't as big of a deal as I'm making it to be. And
like you said, being available for the conversation as a parent and prioritizing communication so that as your kids do grow up and leave the perfect nest you've created, and there is a fear of this big world, what mother doesn't have that fear to go, but we've built in communication into this family. So hopefully no matter what you face, you'll let me face it with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And just the benefit and the joy, luxury, whatever you want to call it, of having that now when your kids are in their midlife, that you can still enjoy something that you've tried to nurture and by God's grace have had this beautiful communication with your kids that has carried on for all these years.
Wow.
Like, it saddens me to think that so many don't have that, but I really feel like it starts when they're under your roof day to day in your home, and now we get to reap the benefits of that together.
I love that. Yeah. What advice, I don't know, we've already covered it, so maybe it's just repeating what you've already said, but what would you say to like the younger generation of moms that are maybe listening right now, that would benefit us, maybe just to go, hey, we did this back in the day, we kept it simple like this, and now you guys have made it so complicated over here. Just what's a piece of advice from your generation of motherhood to give this generation of motherhood?
I mean, I can only say what worked for us, right?
Yeah.
And what we compared to today is probably the thing that comes to mind right off the bat is the busyness, right? And the feeling, the peer pressure. And I think it's largely because of social media and comparing and seeing what everybody else is doing. But you're not less of a parent by choosing not to put your kids in things that your peers or other families or neighbors are putting their kids into. I remember us probably overthinking, but trying to figure out what sort of resonated with your personality or what obviously music for you was like a natural thing right from when you could talk. So that was like, okay, we need to channel, let's do piano, whereas somebody else, it was the athletic ability. So you channel it that way. It was just pick your one thing and put your energy into that.
Pick your one.
And I feel like, I'm not saying it's wrong, but there is that thinking out there that says expose them to all of the things. And then, eventually you'll see which one they shine at. Yeah, I guess, but at what cost? You will be running constantly. And really, kids just want to be with you in your house doing life with you. I mean, not all the time, but I don't think there's enough of that. I don't think there is enough of the sitting down and having a meal together. That's where you hear the stories. That's where you hear the angst, is by sitting across the table from each other and eating. And that's when it comes out. Sometimes it takes a while and 7:00 and you're still sitting there, but that's when the hard things came out. So slow down, just slow down, and don't feel that pressure to do what the Joneses are doing or the neighbors are doing, or you know?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. And make your kids a priority. The season is short. There's so many things begging for your time and pulling at you, but you will not regret that. Just taking time to make them, and that they look back and say, wow, I was your priority. Nothing will make a child feel more secure than to know that you were the priority in their life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Man,
Mwah.
so many good takeaways. Take it slow, chill out, learn a step at a time. Yeah, I feel like everything you're saying is the opposite of get ahead. I really love that. I
Oh,
really love that message, Mom, because I feel like it's so tempting. You probably felt the tension of wanting to be a step ahead of us all the time, to be a good mom under the umbrella of responsible parenting. I better be a step ahead and better. But I hear you saying learn as you go. And I just think that's so freeing for moms to just, it's not all on you. Like, it feels like that at times. And a lot of it is. But it's not all on you, and you don't have to be a step ahead, and you don't have to have them in a million things. Because, yeah, so your kid is thriving at ballet for a few years, but you didn't have one single dinner together.
yeah,
Like, at what
exactly.
cost?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, everything kind of has a cost, right? And so letting those
Totally.
guiding principles and those guiding values be what informs all of your decision making is, I think that's so good and so freeing. Thanks for being my mom and for letting everybody into this conversation. Man, I loved it. And I'm done my cup of tea, but maybe when we get off, we can have another cup of tea. But yeah, happy Mother's Day, Mom. And I love you so much. Thanks for always making me a priority. I mean, I definitely felt that. Yeah.
Love you too.
Love
Happy
you.
Mother's Day to you.
Love you.
Love you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.